Okay, so we're now going to move into a section of our notes that is very similar to what we did whenever we were studying rivers. If you remember, with rivers we had a look at the natural processes and the landforms, and then we went on to take a look at river management, how humans live with the rivers. This is a very, very similar way that we're going to go through this with coasts, because we've looked at coastal processes, coastal landforms, but now we're going to look at how it is that human beings can possibly live with such fast changing dynamic areas. This photograph I think is as good as any to start off with, because it shows extremely well just how dynamic, how changing these kinds of locations are. Because what you've got here is somebody's home. Well, at least it used to be somebody's home. It's now a bit of an odd tourist attraction, because as you can see, the cliff underneath has eroded. And notice carefully what that cliff is made from. Okay, you're not talking about the kinds of cliffs that we've got up here at the north coast of Northern Ireland, made of basalt, which are pretty strong and hard and don't erode particularly easy. This is made from clay. It's soil. It erodes very quickly. This can be eroding within meters per year. And what this photograph does is summarises in microcosm this conflict we have, that we are drawn to the coastal areas. And this presentation will explore some of the reasons why. And yet these coastal areas are places that are very much at risk from various processes like erosion, sea level rise due to climate change and things like that. So how do we manage this? What are the coastal defences that we can put in? And most importantly, what are the arguments that we need to consider whenever we're trying to decide whether or not we use coastal defences in a particular area? Why was this house abandoned? So we're going to take a look at those real arguments as we go through, and that's the real thing that I want you to focus on as we go through this section together, as we take a look at some of the reasons for coastal defences. So to do that, I'm going to take you on a tour around the world. We're going to visit lots of different places, and the idea with this is just to really bring this to life for you, to contextualize this, so this isn't just a theoretical one. We're going to go to actual places, and the first place we're going to go to is, well, actually before we get into that, let me show you this organising schema that we'll come back to as we go through. And this is what is identified for this spec that we've got to look at, the reasons for coastal defence. You'll see here, people living near the coast. Right, notice that little icon, get that locked in your head. Coasts are important economically, notice that icon, get it locked in your head. Sea level rise, notice that little icon, get it locked into your head. We're going to come back and revisit this a lot to get this locked into your head very, very well. But the first one we explore here is that the people are living near the coasts, or more formally, according to the spec, across the world, people live near the coasts, and so they need protection. Okay, here we go. Across the ocean to Miami, Florida. Now, some of you may well have been on holiday here, and you may well have approached this from above. You got a window seat, you looked out. I hope you do. You also always look out and see the things that are going on. But I want you to see what you can notice in this image. Do you see, pardon me, do you see the settlements that are concentrated here along the coastal areas? Let's go and have a closer look at Miami. 450,000 people live here in this location, and as we spin around we can just see how densely packed that all is. Lots and lots of people are living in this particular area. And as you can see in this image here, there has been an increase in the people moving in and living here. Pardon me again. This is a photograph of the same location. Do you see this little bend in the road here and this little bend in the road here? I'm not sure that any of these original buildings left, but there is a little bit of a hint of the street pattern here. 1925, 2017, right on the shore. Now, why would you live in a place like this? Why would you live beside beautiful sandy beaches and tropical warm oceans? What could possibly be the attraction? Well, particularly whenever you see all of this building going on in this beautiful location, we have to remember here that Florida is right in the area that's hit by hurricanes in America. This is one in 1992, Hurricane Andrew, the biggest one to hit Miami in a long, long time. This is a more recent one, Hurricane Matthew, I think it is, which is showing you some of the impacts that these hurricanes can have. Now, we'll be studying hurricanes in the next topic, so you will come back to this. I'm going to introduce you to this notion here of the storm surge, right? And we'll explore that in more detail. Suffice to say, at this stage, a storm surge lifts up the level of the water by these heights all along the coast. Oh, and remember that first image? That's exactly where the people are living. These people are living in the way of these hurricanes. So here's Hurricane Matthew, which caused a storm surge that the Daily Mirror actually said was more like a tsunami. No, it's not a tsunami. It's not a tsunami. You know that, don't you? Tsunamis are caused by earthquakes. But I want you to see if this thing that isn't a tsunami kind of looks like a tsunami. Do you see these waves coming in? The level of the ocean going up is just caused by the winds and the low pressure of the hurricanes. Again, we'll study that in more detail. But look at how far in this comes. And these people are living in these areas very, very close to hurricanes. So there's all these people living here, but they're vulnerable. So how are you going to protect them? What's the argument here for protecting them? Well, could you justify it? I mean, all of that infrastructure, all of those people, all of the cost to that, if that were to flood, could you justify it? Well, I think you probably could. And here's one way in which they do this. We'll come across the flood management a little bit later on, but here's one that we meet, because we're going to put here a whole bunch of sand back in the beach. It's called beach nourishment. You're all nourished when you're well fed, so this is beach nourishment. This is putting the sand back onto the beach. I wonder why you would do that. Why are they not building a big seawall? Well, one of the things that you can observe here, have a close look at this part. See the swash coming on, backwash going out. The beach is absorbing the energy. The more beach you have, the more energy is absorbed, the less likelihood that you're going to have this area here being eroded. So just some more images showing that in operation, laying down all of this extra sand on the beach to try to protect these areas and to move them all around. So there's a strong argument for why you would want to protect an area like this with all of this really intense infrastructure, with all of these people that are living apart and around about here. So hopefully the resolution will pick up quite quickly. Look at that, and you're right beside the sea. You need to protect this area, don't you? That's the way the argument would go anyway. So as we zoom out and we get again this overview of just the scale of that, look, it goes on and on and on all the way up here, and this is where the hurricanes come ashore. All these people living here right beside the sea. There is a strong argument that you need to protect them. Okay, let's leave Florida behind. Let's come over here to the west coast. Let's come to LA, Los Angeles, and yet again you can see this large area, downtown LA, where lots and lots of people are living close to the sea. Let's come in and have a closer look down here. Oh my goodness, is this like every image you've ever seen of an iconic sunset at LA? Oh my goodness, how lovely it would be to have been there. If any of you have been lucky enough to visit California, you'll know how beautiful these scenes and these beaches are, and the number of people that are there is very, very considerable. Residential areas, there's a port here, we'll be visiting that in due course. It's attracting the tourists as well. This is a very, very densely populated area. Again, lots and lots of people living nearby to the coast. Another famous place you might have come across here is Venice Beach. Venice Beach in LA, famous because of the skate park and the public wall arts and things like this. And you'll notice that they've got a breakwater here. They're protecting the particular infrastructure that you've got here that's associated with all these people that live in this area. Again, why would you protect this area? Well, look at how many people are living here. Look at the protection that they're going to be needing as a result of that. But let's leave that behind and go a little bit further north, up towards San Francisco to a place called Pacifica and Pacifica Beach. Now we're going to explore this a little bit further because this is very, very interesting location for us to notice. What do you notice about those cliffs there? Remember that very first photograph we started with? What does it look like those cliffs are made from? Interesting. So let's do a wee street view here, shall we? Let's see if we can pick up any places where we might want to go and visit and stand down here. So let's stand down here and have a look at the cliffs. Here we go. Look at that beach. Look at that view. It's just gorgeous, isn't it? Would you love to be there below those cliffs? Uh-oh. 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 What are they made from? Some of that soil again, isn't it? It's back to the soil. And notice then these buildings right at the edge of that. Right at the edge. And what you've got here. What have you got here? No, not shingle. That's not natural. That is absolutely not natural. Those are boulders that have been placed there to try and protect the area. Right, have a look at this. Have a look at this one here. Right, would you like to live in that house? And notice how much erosion is taking place here and how little is, well, relatively little, this is being eroded. All those boulders down there to try and protect the bottom of the cliff. Let's see if we can pick up a street view here. So we go and stand in the middle of all these boulders. Let's go and have a look. See what we can see here. Oh my goodness, look at them. Right, I wonder, can you spot what the clue is that these are definitely not natural? Right, this isn't shingle. What's the clue? What do you see about the shape? What do you notice about the angularity? What do you notice about the size of them? These are big. Right, if these were natural, they would have been rounded off by the process of attrition. Is that somebody camping down there? Well, what a place to camp. I hope that doesn't fall down on him or her at the top there at the night. But look at that. It's soil, right? And it's going to be collapsing very, very easily and very, very readily. These boulders here are designed to try and protect that and stop that. This is an area very much at risk of erosion. And yet it's an area where lots and lots of people are living, so it's an area where there's an argument that they should be protecting the area as well. Right, seeing as we're in California, we can't help but go and visit San Diego. Why? Well, really, just because I was there 2019. And yeah, there was me in that photograph pretending I was from Top Gun and went and stood in the Midway Museum aircraft carrier pretending that I was Tom Cruise. Oh, fun, fun, fun. And then we went down here for dinner that evening, and this is the very little restaurant that I was in when the 7.2 earthquake struck in California and our table shook and the floor rolled. So we're coming here for no particular reason other than for me just to share that wee story with you again. So anyway, let's go up here to Canada now, to another location that's down by the sea. This is Vancouver. We just get a bit of a sense of this one. I'm just coming past this one quickly. Some of you may well have been at Vancouver, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Oh, look at that again. Absolutely gorgeous with that lovely setting sun, but look at how many people, look at how close they are to the sea. Well, while we're on a roll, let's come in here and have a little bit of a closer look into downtown Vancouver. Again, look at that. Wouldn't it be brilliant if we could go on a field trip here? All those people living by the sea. Oh, well, we're going to leave North America behind now. We're going to come to South America. Christ the Redeemer. This is a big statue. I wonder, do you know which city we're visiting now? Anybody recognize this? Rio de Janeiro. So Christ the Redeemer statue is a very famous one. Let's go and have a closer look, zoom through. Oh my goodness, we went underground there for a wee bit. And here we go. Get our wits about us. And you might well recognize that Sugarloaf Mountain, Copacabana Beach, and the Christ the Redeemer statue is there. You'll know that statue, won't you? Again, what we're seeing here is just how many people are living close to the sea in this location. All over the world, people are living close to the sea. Okay, let's leave this behind. Again, just another very quick whistle-stop tour over here to another continent, another location where people are living very close to the sea. And this is Sydney, Australia. Oh dear, how embarrassing. I can't do accents at all. And we're down here to the iconic Sydney Opera House, where you'll of course have seen photographs of this. This is where the New Year's celebration goes off and they set off all the fireworks from there, everything like that. Look, you're getting the pattern now, aren't you? People all over the world are living so close to the sea. And there are arguments because of all of these people. That's resolution isn't going to pick up there, but there's the Opera House. The arguments saying that we need to protect these locations because people live here. Okay, so we're going to leave Australia behind and we're going to come to Singapore in Southeast Asia. Singapore is probably a country that you've heard of, but Singapore may well not be, or you may not really know just how small Singapore is. It's got a population of 5.7 million people living here, but 730 square kilometres. How big or small is that? Let's take a look. Bigger or smaller than Northern Ireland, do you reckon? What are your thoughts? Why don't we have a look? That's the outline of Singapore. There's Northern Ireland. Singapore is very, very small in comparison. It's actually just basically a city-state. There's the international border of it. And the reason why I'm telling you that is because that large population lives in a very, very densely packed location. You guessed it! Close to the sea. Now here is yet another location with yet more incredible infrastructure close to the sea, and all of these people that are living here very, very close to the sea. So you may not have known that about Singapore, of just how small it is, how densely packed it is with people living so close. And we'll come down here to take a wee quick look here at some of the coastal defences for Singapore. Again, the question is, why do we need them? What is the argument for them? Well, look at the population density. Look at how close people are living to the sea. And in this case, what you've got is some coastal defence here that's trying to encourage the beach to stay, trying to encourage depossession to occur. And you can see there's some evidence that that is occurring. So why though? Why is that being put there? In order to protect all of those houses in behind that residential area. Okay, so we're going to come up here to Ho Chi Minh City, which again, just look at these. These cities are just beautiful. Look at that. Look at that. And just in case you have a notion that cities outside of the MEDCs or places are just filled with poverty, yeah, there is tremendous poverty. We'll discover that in our population and development topic next year. But the rich people in these places can be very rich, and these cities, especially some of these Asian cities, and South American cities, can be very, very well developed. But here's Ho Chi Minh City, and what we're seeing here is just how vulnerable this is to sea level rise. This is the area here that's projected to be flooded under mild sea level rise scenario. This is the one during extreme darkly. But even in the mild sea level scenario, 78% of the population of Ho Chi Minh City are expected to be affected by that potential process. So come in a little bit closer and have a look at the city itself, and you can begin to see again just how flat this is, all these rivers flowing down, how close it is to the sea, and how vulnerable this is. Okay, let's leave that behind, and we're coming over here to India, to Mumbai. Again, let's get a wee bit of an overview of this, shall we? Look at that. Isn't that just gorgeous? This big long bridge that sits off the coast that connects some parts of this city together. Absolutely lovely. Beautiful, beautiful city. But there's some interesting things you need to know about Mumbai. Mumbai as a city, is now shown here in this black outline, but whenever it was originally colonized by the British, whenever they came in, it was made up of all of these different separate islands, 7 of them, all very, very low land. And what the British did was started to build these causeways to connect them. This is the Colaba causeway here, connecting these 2 islands. And here's the construction of it in 1838. And that construction joined all of these islands together. And you can see now the map of present day shining through. You can see all the roads and the streets in there. You can see here how this area has all been redeveloped, but this reclaimed land is very, very low down. And whenever you get some very, very high tides and the storm surge coming in, you can get flooding occurring here as a result of that. There it is in more detail. These are the areas that are projected to be at risk from flooding in 2050, the areas in red. And what you can see here is that all of the reclaimed land is at risk of flooding. Many of the islands as well, just some of the taller parts of the islands above it. But particularly when you've reclaimed this land and you're getting sea level rise occurring, you're putting this city at tremendous risk. Let's go ahead and have a little bit of a closer look. Let's go first of all to Marine Drive in the southern part of Mumbai. Oh, look at this again. Slow dramatic reveal of the sweeping curve of that bay. This is a very popular promenade. People come from all over the city to walk along here, and you can see why. It looks absolutely beautiful. But again, look at that density of population very, very close to it. People living very close to the sea, and look how low-lying that is. In fact, here is a particular example of some of the storm surges that are affecting this area. And you can see this is this is the Marine Drive again. You can see some of the riprap, the boulders that are placed there to try and protect it. But when you get really high tides coming in with a bit of a storm surge, they can easily come over the top of the seawall. And look at all the debris that they're throwing around here. And now these are waves just breaking at the moment, but you could see that it wouldn't take too much more sea level rise for not just the waves to break, but the sea to come over the top of that entirely. Okay, Street View seems to be working a wee bit better for us here, so you can just get the sense of this, and look at the people out enjoying it, and look at all those buildings. Of course you would want to live here. It looks absolutely beautiful. Look at the views you would get. But that very, very dense population there, which is very, very close, beautiful, calm sea in this photograph, the reflections down there, but you could absolutely see with the waves coming over how this could really put this area at risk. Now if we come a wee bit further up, to leave behind some of the rich areas, we can come into some of the shanty towns that exist here in Mumbai, and this is one of the biggest one, Dara Avi, and these shanty towns basically are populated by people that have migrated in from the countryside area, and they're coming into these areas and basically making their own buildings and dwellings out of whatever materials they can. So this kind of area is filled with people that are not wealthy and right beside the sea. They are extremely vulnerable to that sea level rise. Remember, this is one of the areas that is built on reclaimed land. It's part of the area that is just about above sea level, and when you get some of the higher tides happening, these people can be extremely at risk. So they have brought in some coastal management here because there's so many people living there. Some of the mangrove swamps that are found there to try and protect them because so many people live there. Let's go to Japan this time, because we've been here before when we look at some of the challenges here, people living right beside the sea. Another beautiful city, it's Tokyo Bay, capital city of Japan. Let's look at another beautiful photograph, will we? Well, why not? Look at that. Yet more a really high dense population living very, very close to the city, or close to the sea. But we're going to go a little bit further to the north, to one of the locations that we visited when we were looking at the Japan case study. Because it's not just the big cities that are close to the sea. Let's come to this area, Kamashi. Do you remember Kamashi? Remember this this video and this iconic photograph that we watched, this tragedy unfolding of the seawall here being overtopped by the tsunami, and these people in Japan living at very, very high risk. Now, do you remember what it was about Komachi that magnified or amplified that risk? The fact that it's in a bay here, the waves are funneled in, and as they're funneled in, as they're compressed in, as they're squeezed from either side, there's only one way they can go, and that is up. And that 10-meter high tsunami came into the valley and came all the way up the valley, following up here, causing all of that tremendous devastation. So what they have done here to protect these people is built these massive new seawalls along the edge of Japan. Bigger seawalls than ever before. Look at the size of them. Absolutely massive. And they're completely disconnecting the local people from the sea. And Japan's very much built on fishing and that kind of thing. It's very close connections with the sea. But we have disconnected the people from the sea here as a result of that. Maybe they've no choice. Maybe they've no choice, given the nature of that first photograph. But you can absolutely see the argument here because of the threat of the tsunami, of people living close to the sea and why they need that protection. Oh, next up, just a wee quick visit in here to Venice. Venice is yet another location where you're going to see a lot of that happening. So, let's summarise a little bit of the argument that we've had so far. Coastal areas are densely populated. And we've seen that from our whistle-stop tour. This means that many of the world's major cities are in low-lying coastal areas. And these cities, there is very expensive infrastructure, like those buildings there, the power cables, the roads, everything like that needs to be protected. Therefore, let's carry on with our argument. Follow the logic of this. The economic cost of damage to this infrastructure would be very significant indeed. If buildings all across these coastal areas in the world, if this experience to them, they experience this, that would be incredibly significant in terms of damage. The World Bank estimates the damage caused by global flooding could rise in 2005 from 6 billion per year, by 2050 up to 52 billion per year because of the damage that could be caused. In addition to that, the social costs of coastal erosion and flooding can be significant. It's not just the buildings that come down, it's the people who live here, displaced from their homes, if coastal processes were allowed to operate naturally, and if the coastal erosion processes continued. There are major economic costs, major social costs. As a result of these economic and social reasons, there is a need to use management strategies and methods to protect the major settlements on the coastlines. So this is the argument. Lots of people live there. The damage would be significant economically. The damage would be significant socially. Therefore, the argument goes, we need to protect these areas. So this is our first one, the reasons for coastal defences. People live near the coast, and therefore any damage to these areas would cause economic and social consequences, and therefore the argument goes, there needs to be coastal defence. Next on our tour, we're going to take a little bit of a visit around some tourist hotspots, some places that you may well have been to. We're going to revisit some places that may well bring back lovely memories for you as we look at some of the reasons why coasts are important economically.